So unless you completely live under a rock in the world of Nintendo rumors, you are probably somewhat familiar at this point with the talk online around Wind Waker HD and or Twilight Princess HD making their way to the Nintendo Switch, as it was originally thought that these games would be part of Zelda's 35th anniversary. Of course, that time came and went, and then there is now new emerging hope that Breath of the Wild 2 has been pushed to 2023, and the insiders suggesting that these are the games planned for this year in its place. And in today's video, we have to talk about a very interesting update to the story, as we have the developer of Twilight Princess HD making some very interesting comments, and we have to talk about what this means for our chances to get a Zelda game at all in the year of 2022 right now. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we just got one story to get through today, but it is a massive one because if you are a Zelda fan like myself, it is probably very near and dear to your heart, as we've been waiting and talking about a long time of the likelihood and rumors that Wind Waker HD and or Twilight Princess HD should be making their way onto the Nintendo Switch, as they are just for first off logical ports to have happen. I mean, the games already look beautiful, all of the heavy legwork has been done, and a lot of Zelda fans want these classic 3D Zeldas ported over, at which point we will actually have every major mainline 3D Zelda game playable and available on the Nintendo Switch, which would definitely be a huge accomplishment. And we've been waiting around a long time for them to officially be unveiled from Nintendo. And of course, a lot of the talk around this sparked originally from Andy Robinson, who is a gaming journalist for VGC, who we talk about all the time on the channel because VGC does a fantastic job on reporting gaming news. And when Skyward Sword HD was originally revealed to us at the February 2021 Nintendo Direct, Andy Robinson tweeted out a statement saying that at least Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD are 100% coming to the Switch this year, so that's at least one good Zelda game making it onto the Switch. Well, that started a lot of the initial talk, but then of course we had Mr. Jeff Grubb, who is also another gaming journalist who has a lot of connections, and to be fair, who has leaked multiple products before they were announced by talking about them online. And when the September 2021 Direct came and went with no announcement of these games, Andy Robinson took back to Twitter to clarify that it's a fool's game to predict 100% that 2021 was the year that they would come out, but rather Zelda fans sit tight, essentially saying that yes, he has heard through the grapevine that these are still projects that are happening, but it's never been a guarantee that 2021 would be the year that Nintendo would release them. Then you had Jeff Grubb back that up and essentially say that he thought that Nintendo would be saving these games in the event that they needed more development time for Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, and lo and behold, the beginning of 2022 we get the announcement that as opposed to Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 being planned for and ready to go as the late 2022 Zelda title, that instead the new target date is now spring 2023, and that again revived all of the talk online around these games potentially being the 2022 Zelda titles, as historically, if you just look at since the Nintendo Switch has been out, we've essentially gotten a Zelda game every single year, and Nintendo likes to have a Zelda game on the market every single year to help with their overall sales numbers. So then most recently you had another round of news coverage around this because Jeff Grubb again on his podcast acknowledged this when answering a fan question, essentially stating that he thinks that the Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD are a combo pack and they will be the 2022 Zelda title, and he thought it would make most sense for Nintendo to release that bundle in September or October of this year. He does actually state that if it's not Wind Waker HD and or Twilight Princess HD, he's not sure what other Zelda thing it may be, but there should be something Zelda in 2022 for sure. Now, the reason this is all back in the news and being brought up again online is because there is a new update around it. It has to do with the developer of Twilight Princess HD, the lead of the company, essentially saying that they have not been approached from Nintendo to actually work on Twilight Princess HD for the Switch. And to get the exact quotations and what has been said here and then have a breakdown discussion of what it really means, let's quickly hop over to Nintendo Everything, where they have the exact quote and article transcribed around what's been claimed here. Nintendo hasn't approached Tantalus about bringing Zelda Twilight Princess HD to Switch. There are a few first-party Wii U games left that fans are hoping will be brought to Switch, including The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. Thus far, though, it has yet to happen. Tantalus, the team behind Zelda Skyward Sword HD, originally worked on Twilight Princess HD for its release on the Wii U in 2016. However, according to CEO Tom Crago, the company hasn't been asked to work on a Switch port yet. On the latest episode of Fragments of Silicon podcast, Crago said the following when asked about The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD for Switch and whether Nintendo has reached out. No, and look, we'd obviously love to do that, but that hasn't been a priority for Nintendo, or at least not in conversations that they've had with us. The way it works with our friends over there is we'll jump at any opportunity we can to work on one of their titles. There's a constant dialogue between our two companies. Often there's a little bit of time that passes between titles, and there might be other ideas that are kicked around, but in the case of Skyward Sword, some time passed, then the email comes. Would you be interested in considering bringing Skyward Sword onto Switch? To which the answer is, of course, yes, we would. And then we enter into conversations with Nintendo around what that might look like, and eventually we get underway. So it was similar in a lot of senses in terms of how Twilight Princess on Wii U came to fruition. Of course, Nintendo doesn't necessarily need Tantalus to work on a Switch port of The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. The company could always reach out to another company or handle the job itself. Tantalus last teamed up with Nintendo on The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, which released in July of 2021. So while this is a very interesting talking point around the story of Twilight Princess potentially coming to Switch or not, it is not confirmation one way or another, as clearly Nintendo already had them do really the bulk of the work that needs to be done, and you could see Nintendo doing something like, well, this is a simpler port than remastering it to HD from the ground up, so we'll handle that internally and just reconfigure and assign the controls to essentially work with the Switch, as that's more or less all that has to happen here. You also have to keep in mind the talking point around Tantalus actually being wrapped up with Skyward Sword HD for development for quite some time. Who knows exactly the start to finish of that project, but if you think about them developing Skyward Sword HD and Nintendo knows they have that on their plate, they may seek out another company to actually do the work for the Twilight Princess HD work, especially if they knew that they wanted to have Skyward Sword HD, the title for 2021, and the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD bundle pack ready to go for 2022. Maybe you wouldn't want to risk the original developer tackling projects back to back, as all of the insider talk has come from these games essentially being done and ready to go at this point. All of that said, it could also indicate that Nintendo does indeed plan to release these games individually, and the best case scenario Zelda game for us this year to look forward to is the Wind Waker as a standalone port, because so far the entire Wii U library of games has come over at full price individual releases, even going up in price because they were originally sold at $50 on the Wii U generation, and then you get like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze released on the Switch for $60. It's literally the same game with a Funky Kong mode added in, to be fair, which is essentially easy mode, but we got the same game for $10 more expensive released on the Switch. And outside of things like anniversaries, like what we saw them do with Mario and that particular collection, we normally don't see Nintendo bundle games together, so this could be more of a sign that Wind Waker's the 2022 game, then we have Breath of the Wild hit in 2023, and maybe surprise surprise in 2024 we get that long awaited Twilight Princess port, and that's definitely another possibility of how this could all unfold. However, you do have to have the reality check that there is a possibility that the information that Jeff Grubb and Andy Robinson and anybody that's been talking about this stuff online received from people is just bad info, and it's something that Nintendo isn't planning these games right now. And in fact, if we get a Zelda game at all, it might be a brand new Zelda game. It might be something set in the more 2D style. It might be those long rumored Oracle games coming over as part of a collection in the Link's Awakening style, or something similar to that remaster, as opposed to it being the fan beloved 3D Zeldas that we've been talking about this whole time. The reality is it's a fluid situation, and we won't know at the end of the day what Nintendo's really planning until we finally see something revealed at hopefully the Summer Direct presentation, maybe the September. But if Zelda has a chance for 2022 at all, it's got to be at the Summer Direct, because if they announce it at the September Direct, what are they going to do? Launch Zelda in November then, and then we turn around in the very early spring get the next Zelda game, which is Breath of the Wild 2? Like, that seems less likely. Summer Direct 2022 is the time for us to finally lay all these rumors to bed and see what Nintendo really has planned for Zelda this year, if anything at all. But at this point in the video, guys, I want to hear from you personally on your thoughts and opinions around this. Do you think that this has anything to do with Twilight Princess potentially not making it to Switch? Do you think Nintendo just used another team to handle it? Or is Tantalus CEO straight up just lying about it because he can't discuss things like this, and when asked, he just came up with something on the fly? There's a lot of different possibilities. And if we don't get Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess released this year, what game would you like to see released if it is a remake, being whether it be Oracle, Minish Cap, some kind of other 2D Zelda from the past? I would love to hear from you guys on all things around this, and which direction, if any, you think Nintendo is headed for Zelda's 2022 game in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Make sure you check out the Friday video if you haven't already, where we discuss the brand new addition to Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, which is Kirby 64 and the Crystal Shards, and a broad conversation of what the future of N64 games roadmap may look like now that we're running out of the officially announced titles. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.